So we have some breaking news about Paul George, and he has entered health and safety protocols, which actually happened a couple hours ago, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of just woke up. I don't know the video idea planned out, but I'm gonna scrap that because I think we need to talk about Paul George not being able to play in the play-in because this changes everything. Instead of the Clippers losing by 20, they're now gonna lose by 30. Now, but all jokes aside, this really does suck because now the Clippers are gonna lose, and it's honestly not their fault this time. I mean, yeah, they still do have to play this game and everything, but this is a very big disadvantage because you have to look at the perspective that, first of all, today is the game they play. Like, they play tonight. I know the practices are very short, you know, they don't have that many practice days now. However, when we look at the fact that literally today they found out this news, which means that now they need to run a new offense or they need to figure out different adjustments. However, when you look at a coach like Tyronn Lue, that's something he's very good at. He's good at making adjustments on the fly. And by the way, for anyone wondering, this isn't a situation like, oh, Paul George was around someone and he might have it. No, like, he tested positive for it. I know we're not at that stage of Rona where it's like, oh my god, is he gonna die or anything, but still, like, I do pray for a speedy recovery. I know it still does mess with your system when you do get it. So even though I do make jokes on this channel, seriously though, I hope he does recover and things of that nature. The signs were there because a quote from ESPN says the following, that Frank said George did not feel well Thursday and underwent testing. So it looks like they were suspecting that something was gonna happen. I'm also curious to see what happens if the Clippers actually do end up winning and they have the first round. You know, is Paul George still gonna be out, or do you think he'll be fine by then? Hopefully he's only sick for a couple days. Now, unfortunately for the Clippers, this wasn't a couple days ago where it's like, you know, if we lose, that's okay because we have one more chance. No, like, they don't have any more chances. This is their final game if they lose. This season, the Los Angeles Clippers have a record of 24-27 without Paul George. So Clipper fans, yeah, you guys should be terrorized for the three of you that exist. I'm gonna be blatantly honest. I was gonna make a video today saying why I thought the Pelicans were gonna win, and this is before I even knew about the Paul George situation. Like, I actually started to record for that video. So I'm just gonna go off some points from the video that I already had, but just note that, like, I already thought this was gonna happen. Obviously not Paul George, you know, being in health and safety protocols, but I mean from the game itself. First off, I guess with Paul George, I wasn't really thinking that he was gonna do well in the fourth quarter, and I thought that we didn't know which version we're gonna get. Are we gonna get a consistent version, or are we gonna get way off P, PG 13%, pandemic P, playoff P? Like, what are we going to get in this game? Obviously now we are not gonna get any version of him. However, we do have to talk about their X factor. And for me, this is a player that I've always liked that I thought was a little bit underrated at the position he plays, but that's Reggie Jackson. I honestly believe Reggie Jackson is the X factor for the Clippers, and if he does well, then I think the Clippers could really win this game even without Paul George. They also do have other players on their team that are very talented, like Robert Covington, even Nicholas Batum, Norman Powell, Isaac Zubac, Luke Kennard, which he didn't play the other day, so I'm not even sure if he's gonna play this game. I know they have more people on their team, but I'm just trying to give you some context that they do have a lot of talent, and honestly, it could be really good for them if they know how to utilize it. Like I mentioned earlier, Tyronn Lue is really good with making adjustments on the fly, so I trust his ability to do something like that. Now, let's talk about the Pelicans perspective because I have a lot of nice things to say about them. First off, I just want to give the biggest shout out to Jose Alduvarez. I hope I'm saying your name right. I suck at pronouncing names. You guys know this. But seriously, that man is a hooper, and the fact that he went from where he was from, I think he was in the G League at one point, to now getting a contract for the Pelicans and being in a comfortable situation is amazing to me. And I actually do want to talk about him on this team because he does play a very vital role on the defensive end, and he's honestly a dog. He's like a Patrick Beverley, but not as toxic. Gives me like Patrick Beverley vibes, but someone that like has a lot of heart for the game in like a positive way. You know, he's someone that's gonna fight for loose balls. He's someone that's gonna, you know, hustle until the very end. Now, the main two players I want to talk about on the Pelicans are CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, and just by that logic, with these two-star players, I honestly think that should be the driving force on why the Pelicans win. But let me get into a little bit more detail because I'm being very vague if I just say, oh, you know, the Pelicans are gonna win because they have two-star players. First of all, ever since the CJ McCollum trade, the Pelicans not only have improved, but CJ McCollum himself has been playing very good. I mean, the man is an all-star caliber player, and he's been playing like it this season, especially when he was on the Pelicans. I think something that's important to note is that what the play-in does for me essentially is it tells me what players are there for the win now moments, because in a 7-game series you have 7 games. Well, possibly, I mean, minimum you have 4. So in those 4 games, let's just say you have to play well in every single one, and maybe you'll have to play well in more games. However, in the play-in, you have to be good for that 1 game and maybe 2 games, but you still have to show up, especially if you're a 9 and 10 seed. For example, I talked about this yesterday with the Hornets, but they have always sucked in the play-in. Melo could not show up in the clutch, nor could Miles Bridges, so it really did tell me that these players were not able to show up in key moments. However, CJ McCollum had 32, Brandon Ingram had 32, even Jonas Valanciunas had 20 22. And he also had 14 rebounds, if that means anything to you. So even though I feel like the play-in doesn't hold that much value because I think a majority of the teams are going to be first round exits, it really does show you guys that, wow, this guy can perform in clutch moments. Which is why when Paul George had that meltdown in the fourth quarter, I was a little bit concerned for Clipper fans and saying, I don't know what's going to happen in the fourth quarter of a clutch situation if it's a close game, if he's going to do well. Obviously, if we're talking Pelicans basketball, we need to talk about Brandon Ingram, who again is another very important player on their team. I feel like Brandon Ingram has just gotten better every single year that he's played. I think that's finally starting to translate in the New Orleans Pelicans with the record and just the way they've been playing this season. I mean, just like the Clippers, they do have some other good rotational players, like for example, Jose Alvarez that I just mentioned earlier, Trey Murphy III, even Jackson Hayes, who's someone that can be good on the defensive side, and even Herb Jones, who's really improved his shooting. If you can't tell what my prediction is, I obviously have the New Orleans Pelicans winning this game. I just don't think the Clippers can win this, especially without Paul George, and I know they have talent on their team. I know Tyronn Lue's good at adjusting on the fly, but I'm sorry, I just think the Pelicans have been playing better lately. I mean, I had this team winning even before Paul George was in health and safety protocols, even on the fact that Paul George had what, 32, 34 the other day. Now, I will give credit to the Clippers because this season, I really don't think they were trying to contend. They didn't have Paul George for 51 games. They didn't have Kawhi Leonard for the whole season, and we have no idea when he's coming back. So the fact they even made it this close, and there's still a possibility they could win tonight, it's very interesting to see what's going to happen if they win this game and they go to the first round, which, I mean, they're going to get swept by Phoenix, so nice. But seriously, it does suck that this is not going to end the way I think we all wanted it to. I think we want to see a good game with Paul George healthy and CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram healthy and these teams going at it. I wouldn't want my season to end like this, so I definitely do feel for Clipper fans because I think this should also kind of scare people a little bit. Let's just hope that it was just Paul George and that this isn't going to spread to the league, because if this spreads to the entire league, this could be a really weird and just wacky playoffs. Yes, you heard that right. I said the playoffs could be wacky. They could be dumb. They could be stupid, because if we go through another Rona outbreak situation, this is gonna just be bad ultimately. I don't need to see an NBA Finals where Elfrid Payton is the starting point guard for the Suns and the fucking Celtics have goddamn Enes Kanter back. I don't know. Seriously, all jokes aside, I would also check your notifications from Woj, making sure that they don't tweet about any other Clippers players, maybe Norman Powell or just maybe Nicholas Batum. I'm just thinking of players at this point. They haven't reported about any other players so far, and it's been about 2 to 3 hours, so I'm hoping that there's no one else. Obviously, I don't want Paul George to get it, but I just don't want it to spread, and I think Paul George would say the same thing. It's going to be an interesting thing to see what's going to happen tonight with the circumstances that we have, but like I said, there's no doubt in my mind that the Clippers can try to adjust and hopefully put up a good fight. However, in my not at all, not even close to humble opinion, I'm taking the Pelicans.